If you care about future of work, you should check this episode out. Hey, Rowan, thanks for coming on the show. Tell me, I was looking at your website, Sapien, like there's a lot of stuff happening there. Uh, like what are you guys working on? What problem does it solve? Help me understand.
Thanks for having me on, first and foremost. Excited to be here. The short version is that we are a data foundry. And so we exist to connect typically enterprise businesses, not often on-chain companies, more like Web2 companies, your kind of Amazon Zooks or Alibabas of the world,
Mhm,
that are building AI systems. We connect them with people so they can get the data they need to make their AI systems smarter or faster or safer, if in the
mhm,
case of autonomous vehicles and robotics.
mhm,
And really, our part of that puzzle is connecting the supply and demand and
mhm.
then providing the infrastructure to enable that knowledge to transfer in a kind of really clean way. But importantly, to ensure that it's high quality data that's going to be used for training these models.
Got it. Sounds cool. And so, like, who are some of your competitors? Because I know Scale AI does something like this, but I haven't seen many that do this that involves crypto in some way. Can you help me understand how did crypto come into play with your company?
Yeah, of course. It's like the $1 million question that we get over and over again. And I think it's probably us taking a unique spin on a problem because we view it from a different perspective. Myself and a few others that are building Sapien, we've spent a large amount of our working lives in the on-chain world. And so, really, on-chain tech as a stack has taught us how to use like a system of incentives and disincentives to organize capital. That's really the outcome of like a decade plus of people building in the on-chain world. And what we need to do is organize knowledge. And so we're taking that learning, that kind of incentive and disincentive structure, and we're applying it to a new problem. And so we use incentives and disincentives to organize knowledge and to ensure what we call proof of quality. And that protocol that we call proof of quality is basically a layer of incentives, a layer of reputation, like a way of understanding who is consistently doing good work and who may not be consistently doing good work. And then at the back of that, we layer in something called matching and qualification, which basically just checks that the people that are looking to do a specific task are suitably qualified for that task in the case where it needs perhaps medical experience or engineering or legal expertise. And in the case where it doesn't require credentials, but instead requires somebody with like a very specific, I guess, eye or ability to understand space and time. I'm thinking here about like things like 3D, 4D data sets. We do a
Mhm,
skills assessment and we kind of make sure that the contributor understands the data they're looking at. They have the right equipment, the right hardware, CPU, the right everything they need to kind of do that work.
mhm,
And at the end of it, they are credentialed or qualified for specific tasks.
mhm.
And really, our piece of the puzzle then becomes matching supply and demand intelligently.
Got it. And so, like what was like the aha moment that you thought like that this is going to be a massive problem in data labeling that's worth tackling? And yeah, what are some of the key indicators that led you guys to involve crypto and data labeling, put two things together and offer that as a service to, companies that you're working with?
Yeah, we've went a little bit beyond simple data labeling. I think a lot of the kind of draw a box around the AirPods, I just realized I'm
Mhm.
using a blur, I probably shouldn't have a blur. But a lot of this type of work is essentially valueless now. Traditional data labeling, in a lot of ways, is kind of a trending slope towards zero. And
Mhm,
the part of the market that's sloping up
mhm,
is the much more complex work. And so for 3D, 4D data sets and autonomous vehicles and robotics, you're looking at things like LIDAR data,
mhm,
and not everybody can kind of understand what that looks like. And the quality of the data is imperative to the outcome performance of the model. And now, if you're building, say, a translation model and it makes the odd mistake, you
mhm,
might have people misunderstanding each other. It's not
mhm,
great, but it's not safety critical.
mhm,
Whereas when you're talking about something like a humanoid robot going
mhm,
into a household with animals, children, humans,
mhm,
interacting with the world, the way that it learns and the quality of the data that's used to teach it things is super, super critical. And
Hmm.
so we need to kind of answer a couple of questions when we're thinking about where are we getting data. We need to answer who created this data, and we need to answer, can we trust this data? And so everything that we're building from a protocol perspective exists to answer those two questions, to give enterprises confidence that they've got data with provenance, data that comes from reliable sources, people that are either experienced in that field or credentialed in that field, and importantly, data that's been peer reviewed, proven to be accurate to whatever SLA they need, and then delivered to them so they can use it for safety critical systems like autonomous vehicles, humanoid robotics, or language models, translation, anything that they need
Hmm.
with that confidence to get it to work. And
Hmm.
there's many ways to tackle that problem. We believe, as people that have been building in the on-chain world for a lot of years at this point, that the right way to do that is to use the digital immutability that an on-chain system provides, coupled with a globally available system of incentives and an ability to program smart contracts to allow us to sculpt those incentives to drive the right outcome. And what that means in less gobbledygook words is we can have contributors stake some collateral. And so if they want to
Hmm.
progress through the ranks and do
Hmm.
increasingly more complex work, they need to put some collateral up for that work. And if they
Hmm.
do good work, we're going to pay them more because their data is valuable to the customers. And if they do bad work or if they cheat, then we're going to slash them. They're going to lose that collateral. And that means they have real kind of economic alignment with the
Hmm.
right outcome, which
Hmm.
is a huge boost to the overall quality. And then the
Hmm.
last piece here is that one of the biggest differentiators is our proof of quality protocol.
Hmm.
Typically, a scale AI or an app, and these are kind of the incumbents in the data space for AI training. Huge businesses, vast amounts of people contributing work from all around the world, typically operating in a centralized way for quality control. And so that means they may have people in 100 countries that are providing data, and then it all comes to a large facility where it's kind of checked, structured, and then delivered. Instead of doing it this way and
Hmm.
having kind of all the economics for that piece of work tied up with the company,
Hmm.
we allow anyone from the network that's reached a sufficient trust level, like a reputation score,
Hmm.
to come in and start validating the work of others. And the way that works is they're just validating the work of peers that have a lower reputation score. So the highest
Hmm.
reputation users do the verification of the lowest reputation users. And that
Got it.
enables us to scale and to answer those two questions.
Got it. Got it. Sounds interesting. And then, so, I mean, I've been talking to a few guys from like Turing, for example, and or X Turing, I would say. And some of the things I hear is that like data labeling in 2 years may become obsolete, which is kind of, I think, what you mentioned. But you're talking about specialized data that's still going to be in demand. Um, like, where do you see the industry heading? Like, I mean, first of all, first question is like, in 2 years, is there going to be mass reduction in jobs for data labeling, or do you see a shift towards more specialized data? Like, help me understand the industry a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I have to I have to kind of caveat what I'm going to say with we have no idea. I think anybody that pretends to have any idea is just lying. Like they're just speaking out their ass is the bottom
Mhm.
line.
Mhm.
AI systems are improving, evolving, and even self-improving at
Mhm.
an insane rate. And so to try
Mhm.
and predict where we'll be in 6 months is pretty hard, let alone 6 years. And
Mhm.
so that's my caveat. I can give you my opinion though. Like I see a clear trend for the simplistic labeling work to essentially run to zero in the very near term. Computer vision can do most of this already today. And I see the more sophisticated kind of chain of thought reasoning type scope where you're taking real human expertise and you're distilling it down into a data set and using that data set to better inform a model so that it can be more useful in that area. I see that as lasting a decent amount of time, but
Mhm.
we have to kind of take a step back and think about the speed at which AI is improving versus the speed at which humans as a collective are increasing knowledge, because that's
Mhm.
really the balance here. And
Mhm.
so if humans are not increasing knowledge faster than AI is learning, then clearly the expert reasoning is going to be a finite source of work. And so it may keep people busy for the next 5, maybe 10 years. We have no idea how long it will take for AI to essentially understand and absorb the collective human intelligence, which sounds a little bit dystopian and crazy, but that's really the trend that we're on.
Mhm.
And then thereafter, I think the work won't stop. Obviously, we will constantly discover new things, we will constantly learn new ways to think about things, and we will have new nuance and understanding of the world around us to provide to these models. The
Mhm.
piece, though, that I really believe has properly long-term legs
Mhm.
is anywhere where a model has to interact with the real world. And
Mhm.
so this year, more and more, we're seeing AI brought into the physical space, whether that is something really simple like a little dongle that you wear that
Mhm.
records things happening around you and does note taking,
Mhm.
all the way through to Waymo and Zoox, who are running taxis without taxi drivers,
Mhm.
and companies like Tesla, who are building robots, and Unitree, who are building robots, and the other 100 startups that are trying to do humanoid robotics.
Mhm.
All of these things, I think, will generate demand for human input,
Mhm.
whether that is understanding LIDAR data or understanding how to interact with a particular object or how to navigate safely around humans or animals or the outdoors. I
Mhm.
think all of this type of work will last essentially in perpetuity
Mhm.
because there's an element of randomness. Like you
Mhm.
can never know everything because not everything has happened. So there'll always be new scenarios.
Mhm.
And I think that's really where humans will be required super long term.
Got
Near
it.
term, though, just to summarize that massive ramble, simple stuff going to zero, expert stuff probably going to last a long time, but we don't know how long. And then thereafter, it's randomness that's going to keep humans involved in the loop.
Got it. So I have a couple of follow-up questions, but like, I mean, since we're on the topic of jobs, like, what do you like from what you're seeing? Like, what are some of the safest jobs to get into right now? I mean, like, I run an organization or a company that helps place expert engineers into jobs, and a lot of them are asking me questions like, "Hey, like, like, are engineering jobs still going to be around?" And then I look at, like my cousin who's like a junior engineer, and then I look at like the market there, it's completely shot, right? Like in a sense, like, hard to get a job because like everyone's demanding expertise. So experts seems like they're going to be fine, but what happens to like the more junior talent? Like, have you guys looked into that at all? Just curious.
I have. I have a couple of different paths that we could follow. And a part of why we exist is to try and steer us towards the positive path.
Hmm.
Like this can really go in many, many different ways. But ultimately, if we distill it down, it can go in either a positive way or a negative way.
Hmm.
Negative way is something that isn't worth thinking about, really. It's worth trying to protect against,
Hmm.
but we should be spending all of our time and attention to prevent us even stepping down that path. I think if
Hmm.
we think about large technological shifts in the past couple of decades, like the internet obviously made a huge difference to how we all live and work and communicate. And then social media, again, kind of changed how we communicate and how we interact. And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, it changed that for the worse in most cases. There's lots of good that came out of social media, but there's also a lot of bad. And I think we're at that same crossroads we were at with things like social media, where it's still early enough for us to do the right things and ensure that people are actively involved in how we train, create, and roll out models so that they are augmenting humans and not ultimately replacing humans in mass. I think the real risk to employment, and this is kind of going off on a weird tangent, we're kind of getting a little bit dark here, but to me, the real risk to employment is less about AI and more about robotics. The vast majority of simple administrative functions, I think, can at this stage be done by an AI agent, but they can't do everything and they don't always have the right nuance. And so I don't see that as being a massive shift. Things like coding, I think, like weirdly, are likely to be changed pretty dramatically. But again, like we're doing this in an augmenting way, not in a replacing way. We're basically making an engineer 10x more productive by allowing them to work with a number of agents. Similarly, in like fields of medicine, your doctor has 10 minutes to do your quick assessment and understand huge amounts of data. And like the human brain is just not cut out to absorb this book of your life and distill it down into like, you should do this. But AI can. And so augmenting your doctor with a model that can understand your entire medical history and give your doctor the output it needs, one page exec summary like that's hugely beneficial. So for me, like there's a path of augmentation, there's a path of replacement. But again, the real risk to me is not the AI models. I think it's more like robotics.
Hmm.
If you add AI plus human shaped robot, you're in a world where basically no job is safe,
Hmm.
realistically, because manufacturing can be easily done by a robot that has a brain, um, sweeping the road, like literally everything that
Hmm.
can be done by a human at that stage. And the parts that would be safe in that dystopian future that we never want and we don't want us to drive towards would be, I guess, the creative fields
Hmm.
like music, poetry, art,
Hmm.
literature, gaming, movies.
Hmm.
Things like that will always want humans to be doing those things. It's like
Hmm.
we attribute extra value to food that's created by a person rather than like squirted into a packet in a factory. And we call it like artisanal whatever. And
Hmm.
really all that means is made by a person. I think we're going to have a lot more made by human type labels in the future.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, it seems like, I mean, like at least from my experience, like like the more I actually trust AI, the more I get done, and the less, like I kind of, think about like, oh, like I'm using AI, it's going to make things worse. Like if anything, like it's producing more results for us as a company, like in everything that we do. Obviously, oftentimes it comes up a little bit short. And I think that number is like, like I think people say like it gets you 80% there, but the other 20% needs to come from, from humans. Do you think that's ever going to change? And I mean, these numbers are arbitrary, like meaning like sometimes, the output that I get, it gets us 98% there, right? And so do you think that loop will ever close, like especially for software engineering, for example? Like with Lovable, like you're able to build apps, but at some point, if you need to scale it, you still need human expertise. From what you're seeing in the industry talks that you've probably been a part of or discussions, like what's the outlook there? Do you think the current AI technology can get us through the point where AI can do 100% of the doctor's job or 100% of software engineer's job? Do you think that's a possibility with LLMs?
I mean, anything is possible at this stage. I just don't want it to be possible, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think we should ever fully replace a human. I
Hmm.
think, particularly for something as sensitive as healthcare, like, you should have a real person with real human context, nuance, judgment, and ability
Hmm.
to do a proper diagnosis. And I believe that augmenting that doctor with an AI assistant is a no-brainer at this point. Like for
Hmm.
example, a full body MRI is literally thousands of tiny, thin slices of your body.
Hmm.
A human is going to take forever to look through that, and we're all fallible. You
Hmm.
teach a model how to recognize irregularities in those scans, and
Hmm.
the AI model will, while you're speaking to the patient, figure out exactly which four areas of your body are a little bit suspicious,
Hmm.
present it to the doctor, and the doctor can then go, "Ooh, big problem," or "Actually, don't worry about it." Like that's the augmentation, and that's the version of the future that I would love to see, and
Hmm.
the future that we are trying to help to create. I think a big part of what we are doing is ensuring that humans are in the loop with the training process. They
Hmm.
are providing the right context, the right nuance, the right judgment to
Hmm.
ensure that these models are becoming more useful to humans
Hmm.
and to the benefit of everyone rather than allowing or not allowing, but rather than the alternative, which is let's have models teaching models, let's have
Hmm.
models self-improving, creating synthetic data and then training each other.
Hmm.
Where are humans in that system? And what are the risks of allowing that to happen without humans in the loop? To
Hmm.
me, it feels like the right path. And it feels like the best chance of going down the right path is to continuously use human expertise, nuance, and judgment to steer
Hmm.
development.
Hmm. How do you operate a company with so much uncertainty in this space? Like, I feel like you can't look beyond 6 months.
I mean, we have strategically not specialized in any specific area. If
Uh-huh.
we were like, so you said it yourself, like data labeling. The
Hmm.
first idea for Sapien was literally let's just decentralize scale AI and let's try
Hmm.
and come up with like a more fair or ethical way of sourcing data from people. And
Hmm.
rather than the company capturing all of the value, so Scale AI, for example, they sold to Meta, they sold about half of their business. It was
Hmm.
like a 14 or $15 billion payday for the business.
Hmm.
But what about the millions of people that provided the data? Like, are they sharing in that upside?
Hmm.
Probably not, right? They're not
Hmm.
equity holders. And
Hmm.
so, one of the other benefits of doing this in an on chain way is that the contributors are staking the Sapien token as
Hmm.
collateral. And so,
Hmm.
as Sapien becomes more valuable as a company, value will accrue to these holders via the DAO. And that
Hmm.
means that in a world where we're successful and we're able to provide vast amounts of data to some of these huge models,
Hmm.
everybody wins. It's like a fairer, more equitable way.
Hmm.
But we've kind of grown beyond that kind of narrow construct, and we're now looking to just be a data source. Like we are a data foundry. We will
Hmm.
either structure data that the customer brings to us. So
Hmm.
that's in the case of like autonomous vehicles. They bring us the data, we
Hmm.
structure it, we pass it back with the added nuance and understanding so they can do the training, or we source new data. And
Hmm.
that's like a completely different thing. But yeah.
Got it. Got it. And so, like, like for the next 3 to 5 years, like, I guess, like, my first question is, like, how many competitors do you guys have that are specifically solving the problem the way you're solving it, involving crypto um, and yeah, basically that. Like, is there some big names out there? I know Scale AI and Mercor, for example. They're the big players, but they have nothing. They're not doing anything with Web three. In the Web3 space.
Yeah, and just before we go there, I realized that I waffled about nonsense and didn't even answer your question. How do we run a business without knowing the future? I mean, I don't think anybody can really run a business thinking and knowing the future, but it is pretty tricky. And the way that we are getting around this is not to pick a lane.
Hmm.
Instead, build the infrastructure that allows knowledge transfer from humans to enterprises building models.
Hmm.
And that way, it doesn't matter how the trend moves. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter what type of data is in most demand.
Hmm.
We are simply the incentives and disincentives and the framework to allow that data to pass. And that
Got it.
way, we are way more sustainable and we don't need to have a finger on the pulse in terms of exactly what's happening,
Mhm.
aside for data sets that we're proactively building. But that's where our kind of edge and risk is, if you like.
Got it. Got it. I'll ask you the same question then. Like, what's like the broader vision for this industry? Like, what do you see happening in this space for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of how companies approach this problem? Are you getting? I mean, will you see more competitors like yourself popping up in the kind of like going into the Web3 direction, involved trying to get crypto implemented for fair payments, or what's the future here?
I would be shocked if there aren't a huge number of similar style systems built. And the
Hmm.
reason for that is that trying to do what we're doing, trying to organize incentives and disincentives, and then organize global payout. Like we have around about 1.8 million people signed up, of which around 800,000 of those are actively contributing data, and they're
Hmm.
across 100 plus countries. And so if I want to pay these people fiat, I need to go and
Hmm.
create banking relationships with a crazy number of different banks, and I need to
Hmm.
go and get myself to a compliant position with a ton of different regulatory bodies.
Hmm.
And then I have to handle all of the FX risk because I can't pay everybody dollars. I can't pay
Hmm.
everybody euros. Like it's 100 different countries.
Hmm.
And so using on-chain infrastructure enables us to just apply a standard to the entire problem. If you think about a company like Uber, they
Hmm.
had to go country to country, they had to figure out the regulation, and then they had to figure out how on earth to pay drivers in every single country. That's a
Hmm.
massive part of the headache that they had when they were scaling their business. We don't need to have that headache. We can use something like USDC. It's
Hmm.
accepted in any wallet. It doesn't matter what country the person is within. As long as they have a mobile phone or a laptop, they can spin up a wallet, they can receive that USDC. And
Hmm.
at this stage, in 2025, there are fiat off ramps in essentially every single currency you can imagine to allow that person, if they wish, to flip from USDC back to Brazilian reais or Argentinian pesos or whatever currency they need. And so big tick in terms of like speed to deploy.
Hmm.
And then there are companies that are set up to handle stablecoin payments, and
Hmm.
they look after all of the regulatory piece. And so I don't need to go out and figure out how to become compliant in 100 plus countries. I can
Hmm.
partner with two or three stablecoin providers. They deal with compliance and they deal with payouts. And
Hmm.
I'm essentially fast track to market. So aside from being able to organize the incentives, just solving basic function and operations of the business is a huge unlock from an on-chain perspective.
Hmm. So, like for example, I run a freelancer platform as well. Like I said, it focuses on software engineers, but like in countries like Argentina, where the currency is unstable, as well as all the neighboring countries, including here in Mexico, as well as like Colombia. So a lot of software engineers prefer actually crypto. Like, where do you first of all like source talent from, and like where do you see like crypto being most in demand, like in which countries?
Great questions. So when we first started, we had a huge cold start problem. We
Hmm.
are trying to build a network of people and we're sitting with no people. And so boots on the ground recruitment was kind of how we rocked for the first
Hmm.
number of months.
Hmm.
And then once you start to get some volume of people,
Hmm.
you have referral traffic. And so we incentivize people to essentially refer their friends. And
Hmm.
so if they take in two friends and their friends start earning some income for the first year, the person that
Hmm.
referred their friend will earn a tiny little bonus for their friends
Hmm.
from their revenue, if you like.
Hmm.
And so that enabled us to start growing quite quickly. And
Hmm.
it gave us that kind of network effect to get from a cold start into like numbers.
Hmm.
And now we're onboarding without too much effort, 5, 10, 15, sometimes even 20,000 people on a daily basis.
Wow.
And not all of these people convert. Some of
Hmm.
them kind of come in, they sign up, they look around and go, you know what, this is not for me. But
Hmm.
others will come in, they'll pick a task, they'll start contributing data, and they'll start earning. And
Hmm.
the way that payouts will work, so today payouts are in primarily USDC. We have a points campaign where people are earning almost like a stake in the future airdrop when we have a token. And then post launch of token, users will be earning the majority of their rewards in stablecoins
Hmm.
because volatile otherwise. And then 20% would be the minimum to be paid out in Sapien tokens. And the
Hmm.
idea is we kind of create a loop here where they do work, they have the work quality controlled. It's deemed to be good. They're rewarded for the good work with stablecoins and with Sapien. The Sapien goes into their collateral pot and it's locked up against their future work and it kind of continues from there. And that
Hmm.
lets them build not just reputation in the system, but it lets them build their collateral, which
Hmm.
means they have access to more complex tasks and ultimately get access to doing peer review on everybody else. And that's
Hmm.
really how they can start amplifying their earnings. And then at
Hmm.
any time, if they want to bail, they can bail. They request withdrawal. There's a small cooldown period of a couple of days.
Hmm.
We have this cooldown period to make sure that we can do all of the quality control on their work
Hmm.
before they withdraw the collateral. So,
Hmm.
like if we see that they've done a whole bunch of cheating or something, we can slash them before they bail,
Hmm.
or we can just check, yep, all good, great, and then they can withdraw,
Hmm.
um, and on it goes. But that's kind of the structure and how it's set up today.
Got it. And so, which countries do you guys source talent from for the most part? Like, which countries are the most in demand?
We've done a ton of sourcing in Asia, specifically in China.
Hmm.
A number of our early customers were Chinese, and so we
Hmm.
had Alibaba and Baidu and companies like this,
Oh, wow.
and they required the data to be sourced from people within their country, and so that was boots on the ground, finding people and bringing them into the network. But today, we don't really specifically target any geography. In
Hmm.
fact, we almost do the opposite. The data quality is typically higher
Hmm.
if we don't target one specific geography. And the reason for that is that if you grab all of your people from the UK, for example,
Hmm.
then the data set will reflect local, cultural, and geographic norms. Like if it's everybody is a 30-year-old male from London, then your
Hmm.
model is going to end up thinking like a 30-year-old male from London. And that might be okay if you're building a model for that demographic, but the chances are you're not. So you
Hmm.
want diversity to ensure that your data is closer to a rounded truth rather
Hmm.
than heavily
Hmm.
biased in one direction.
Got it. And so, like, how did you guys start out in China? I see that you guys work with Lenovo, other companies there. Like, why was that like a starting point?
So one of our exec team, Henry,
Uh-huh.
is actually Canadian, but
Uh-huh.
speaks fluent Mandarin and had some
Oh.
good connections over in China with family members. And
Hmm.
so we realized quite early on that most of the big incumbents
Hmm.
are US companies, tech
Hmm.
companies.
Hmm.
And that means that they can't do business with China. But there's a
Hmm.
ton of talent in China building cool models,
Hmm.
whether they're autonomous vehicles or anything else.
Hmm.
And we've kind of felt that it was an opportunity that we should go after. So we
Hmm.
bundled Henry up,
Hmm.
sent him on a plane. He went and hung out,
Uh-huh.
and in the space of a few months, managed to land a couple of big names.
Hmm.
And obviously, as a small company, you need to prove your worth and deliver consistent, high quality data.
Hmm.
But a year or two on, like we've done that now, and we consider them repeat customers, and we are building out an office there to support
Nice.
those deals.
Nice. So, like, U.S. is in the race against China in the AI race, and so, like, what does that look like? Do you feel like China is ahead, or is the U.S. ahead, and China is just always gonna, follow? What's the what does it look like on the ground there?
I think it's almost impossible to know.
Hmm.
There's kind of two segments here. There's what can we play with as
Hmm.
consumers,
Hmm.
and what do they have behind closed doors that we don't get to see? And I think
Hmm.
that's really where the race will be won or lost, if it is
Hmm.
a race.
Hmm.
Um, and I've no idea who's ahead in that world. I
Hmm.
think from a consumer perspective, the
Hmm.
US based products are typically the ones that I personally use. I have a lot of success
Hmm.
and a lot of respect for the way they've been built.
Hmm.
I don't typically use many of the Chinese models personally. I
Hmm.
have been using Manus a bit actually. Manus is pretty awesome from
Hmm.
like an AI agent perspective. I don't use DeepSeek, for example.
Hmm.
I believe it's pretty good. I played with it when it was released.
Hmm.
But from a UX perspective and from like a context building perspective, I personally prefer things like Claude and ChatGPT.
Hmm.
But I think most of the utility that's going to come from AI in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be cars, robotics, planes, boats. It's
Hmm.
going to be a little bit different to how we're using it today.
Hmm.
And that is anyone's game for now.
Hmm.
Don't know which way it'll go.
Got it. Got it. So, in terms of like, to some extent, you guys are a product, but also like a service-based company, right? And so, like, which part of your company have you guys automated, for which you've built software? Like, which one is still done by humans? Like, and which one do you look to automate in the future? Just curious.
Yeah, onboarding is still fully human centered just now.
Hmm.
And the reason for this is that we don't have the token live. Token's going to go live in the near future. And so
Hmm.
without the token, we don't have that economic alignment. And it means that we
Hmm.
need to be super careful with who we trust to do different tasks.
Hmm.
And then we need to do a ton of manual QC to make sure the data is actually accurate. So
Hmm.
onboarding currently very manual and centralized. The
Hmm.
aim is to fully open it up so that everyone
Hmm.
can kind of self-select tasks or be matched specifically to more complex tasks.
Hmm.
But again, we need the token, we need the reputation system, and then that'll happen. And I think aside from that, quality control today is very manual, but the
Hmm.
plan is not necessarily to automate. We do augment with some models already,
Hmm.
but the plan is to keep humans as the primary quality control. Like for us, that's one of the most important things that we do,
Hmm.
keeping humans in the loop and ensuring that it's human nuanced judgment and context that's steering. And
Hmm.
so moving that QC from us in a kind of hacky startup way
Hmm.
to any number of the community that have reached sufficient reputation is
Hmm.
kind of the next pass for not automating, but freeing ourselves up from something that's capturing most of our time.
Got it, got it. And but everything else, like for, you've developed basically like custom software where, someone can log in, pick a task. Like,
Yep.
what's the average payout for like each one of these tasks? And are they long term, short term? Like, because like we've worked with, or we've tried to work with a couple of companies that offer data as a service, or like they have a data marketplace, and sometimes they have like short, no, not short term gigs, but yeah, I would call them short term gigs for expert um, linguists, for example. And so sometimes those projects could be 2 months, sometimes 6 months. Like what's like an average project for on your website or on your at your company?
It just depends. It's super customer specific.
Hmm.
Payouts are a massive range. On the low end, it could be a couple dollars an hour, $3 an hour for really
Hmm.
simple work that almost anybody could do.
Hmm.
On the high end, it can be hundreds of dollars per hour. It could even be thousands of dollars per hour, just depending on the type of expertise that's needed. I
Hmm.
think the highest paid task we've had so far has been about $350 per hour. And
Hmm.
this was looking for board certified oncologists and radiologists to
Hmm.
help a model understand where potential cancer was in radiography and screening images. And
Hmm.
so, like, that's your super complex, like, clearly not everybody can do this. And
Hmm.
also, not everybody can quality control this, which makes an extra layer of complexity. But on
Hmm.
the really simple end, like for example, maybe it's a native Sango speaker and they're translating Sango to English and back and helping a model better understand their language. Like
Hmm.
that's probably going to be a few dollars an hour. We actually
Hmm.
have a partnership now to think about it with the World Food Programme and United Nations.
Hmm.
If you think about the average wage in Central Africa or East Africa, unfortunately, there's areas there that are massively impoverished, and people are earning a dollar or two a day if they're lucky. And
Hmm.
so having these people who have very valuable knowledge to AI models, local languages and dialects and local contexts that the model just doesn't understand or have any visibility of, giving them the opportunity to earn a few dollars per hour. It may not seem much if you're living in the West. It may even be below minimum wage in some countries. For
Hmm.
them, it's life changing. It's like a massive, massive deal. And
Hmm.
so we try and ensure that we are enabling anyone anywhere to participate. And we try and always ensure that people are properly and fairly rewarded for the task they're doing. And it's always based upon complexity. The more complex the task, the more
Hmm.
the payout will be. Simple as that.
Got it. Got it. And so like for example, if someone comes to you and they need data, like like from some African country, where it's like the technology is scarce, like how do you recruit that talent?
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
super hard. The United Nations have programs set up where they enable people to use technology to do the work. And to
Hmm.
be clear here, I want to make something very clear. This simple translation work, the
Hmm.
rate doesn't change if it's Africa or Poland
Hmm.
or Scotland. It doesn't matter. It's
Hmm.
it's a few dollars an hour
Hmm.
globally. And so
Hmm.
these people are paid exactly what they would be paid elsewhere. And
Hmm.
like many of the large tech companies will pay you based upon your location. I don't believe in this at all. Like in a world where we're using on-chain technology, we are
Hmm.
literally trying to say that borders don't exist, and
Hmm.
that's how we're able to make payouts globally, and that's
Hmm.
the kind of concept that we're running. And so we pay people the same based upon the task. I don't care
Hmm.
where they're from. All I
Hmm.
care about is they can provide super high quality data. And if they
Hmm.
do, they're going to get paid.
Hmm. What's like, you mentioned a couple of things like high quality data, cheating. How do you determine high quality? What's high quality data, and how do you determine if someone was cheating?
So this is the hardest part. The cheating's easy. The cheating, we have a bunch of silent captcha and a bunch of different systems, including
Mhm,
Cloudflare and similar, that
mhm,
essentially monitor how a user interacts with the product, with the
mhm,
tasking system. And so
mhm,
if you're making like jumpy mouse movements, like
mhm,
you're an AI
mhm,
agent,
mhm,
then you're cheating.
mhm,
If you're a human and you're making nice smooth movements, things like this, and like you're acting like a human, we can kind of see that. We can sense. But
mhm,
also the accuracy of your submissions, where you're dialing in from. There's a whole bunch of different things that we're checking for to detect if somebody is likely to be person or likely to be bot. And then if they're likely to be bot, then we'll have extra checks on that data set to make sure it's not just randomly smashing buttons,
mhm,
and we'll deduct earnings or deduct points depending on where they're working to kind of steer them back in the right direction. And so, super important for us that it's humans doing the work. And we have a partnership with World. They're building essentially proof of humanity for like the
mhm,
AI age, I believe is the way they frame it. They have kind of two layers here. The first layer is simplistic. It's like you have a unique phone, a mobile phone, and you can use that to generate a unique passport identity. And that essentially proves not necessarily that you're human, but it at least proves that you have a unique device. So chances are you're a person. You're not
mhm,
going to buy 10,000 phones for 10,000 bots. And
mhm,
so that's like layer one. And
mhm,
then layer two, they have this kind of dystopian eyeball scanner. We don't use this. It's
mhm,
very early and it's not available everywhere.
mhm,
However, that for some customers, if they wanted to go that far of like, we absolutely need to guarantee the person is a human,
mhm,
that type of technology exists, and they
mhm,
could verify humanity through that.
mhm,
But for us, we're just doing as much pre-work as possible while we onboard the person to ensure that they are indeed a person, checking credentials, checking skills, checking how they're interacting and where they're interacting from. And
mhm,
that's typically how we get over that kind of proof of person.
mhm, mhm. Got it. Got it. And so there, there, there was there was another question that I wanted to ask. Let me just um, eh, what was it? It was give me a second here. Give me a second.
You asked about how we check the quality.
Yeah, the quality. Yeah, the quality.
This one's super hard. And
Okay.
so today we do centralized QC. And that
Mhm,
means, depending on the data set, we will source the expertise, if we don't have the expertise internally, to
mhm,
verify that the outputs of the data are correct.
mhm,
The future state is to move away from centralized and move towards peer review. And
mhm,
so, for example, a data set using images of like selecting and showing what types of animals are in a field or something really simple.
mhm,
The data set will be compiled. It might be a few gigabytes in size. It might be a lot more. We will then pass that data to a few
mhm,
peers who have
mhm,
proven to be more reputable, either
mhm,
because they've spent longer in the system or they have higher accuracy or whatever metric has given them that reputation score. And they'll take a pass. And they'll
mhm,
take a pass through a couple of different people until we have confidence that data set is sufficiently accurate. And then
mhm,
that'll be final checked by us, and then it'll be shipped off to the customer. So that's like your
mhm,
most simplistic version. Where it
mhm,
gets really complicated is where we have expertise in play. The
mhm,
chances are we don't have that expertise in-house. And so if it's like medical imaging, for example, it means that we always need to double dip. We need to have multiple opinions converging on a source of truth to then
mhm,
determine that is indeed accurate.
mhm,
And that's typically the approach here across everything. We have multiple opinions, they converge on truth. But obviously, the more complex the data, the less people that can do it, and the
mhm,
harder our task is to
mhm.
source and verify that data before we deliver it.
Got it. And so, like, with that said, like, what's been the hardest part in scaling your company? Like, is it people? Is it, I don't know, I don't know, questionable customers who are asking for very, very demanding work?
It's probably a systems problem. Like we've chosen to tackle something that's not easy. Like the two
Mhm,
questions I started this with, who created this data and can we trust it?
mhm,
They're actually very difficult questions to solve for.
mhm,
And the incumbent data foundries have very complex, huge systems with very large numbers of people that exist to ensure that they can give good answers to those questions. We've
Hmm.
tried to like rip this apart and start again and do something that's perhaps more efficient, like time will tell,
Hmm.
perhaps more cost effective, time will tell, and ultimately should provide higher quality data because everybody that's in the process is now incentivized to provide higher quality data. And so the thesis
Hmm.
here is really simple. Like if you align the right incentives to shape an outcome, chances
Hmm.
are you'll get that outcome.
Got it.
Again, time will tell. But I think
Got
that's the hardest part here. We're doing something funky
it.
and
Hmm.
we're using technology that is in some places relatively new.
Hmm. And and would you say that's like a pivot based on, what was like the, like the first thing that the first thesis or the first idea that the company started with, from which you're kind of like making some of these shifts and pivots to right now?
The
And
very
what was,
first
yeah,
founding principle was like, oh, sorry, on you go.
oh no, I was gonna say, and what was like the main lesson there?
Yeah, I mean, the very first stab at this
Hmm.
was really simply, let's see if we can build scale AI in a decentralized model
Hmm.
using technology that's widely available in 2025. And
Hmm.
let's try and drive towards a fairer and more equitable outcome for contributors
Hmm.
and a higher quality data set for
Hmm.
customers. Like, if we
Hmm.
can nail that, this is a home run.
Hmm.
And quite quickly, we realized that we were too narrow, focusing on just basic data labeling as a tasking platform.
Hmm.
Everything that we built initially was like text comparison, image annotation, and bounding boxes, really simplistic labeling work.
Hmm.
All of that will go to zero. 100% all of it will be worthless in the
Hmm.
next, if it's not worthless already. Like we rarely get asked for these things even now, a year and a half on. And
Hmm.
so the pivot has been to kind of take a step back from specializing in one type of data and
Hmm.
instead to provide the infrastructure that allows that data to flow. And that's really where we've managed to build product market fit. It's
Hmm.
where we're starting to deploy real tooling, and it's where we see sustainable business for ourselves going forward.
Got it. Got it. What is like one advice that you would share with uh, founders building in the AI space right now? Like, I mean, I know a lot of them, oftentimes are building wrappers around ChatGPT. Like, where do you see, uh, or, like, is there any areas that you see with high opportunity in terms of AI, or is everyone a little too late to the race, so to say?
I think we're so early with AI still that it's definitely not too late to the race. There's so many parts of the puzzle that we could improve upon.
Hmm.
Really, to build a successful model, it's kind of three components. You need a ton of compute.
Hmm.
I think if you want to find a way to build better compute, you're probably too late. Like NVIDIA just dominate there. They're
Hmm.
one of the largest companies in the world. I believe earlier this year they were the largest company in the world. And so they have like unlimited resources tackling this problem. Chances
Hmm.
are it's not a good idea to try and stab unless you've discovered something and it's epic. Sure, go for it. And then
Hmm.
the next big chunk is algorithm. Like, how are you deploying that compute to tackle a particular problem? And I think there's like gains to be made there. I think DeepSeek, for example, showed that that's an area that you can make efficiency improvements and get better outcomes. For me, and obviously I'm biased because we're in the data space, but for me, the third section on data is really the largest opportunity.
Hmm.
That's what fuels all of these models. That's what's going to make them more efficient, safer, more useful. And
Hmm.
so there's a ton of different opportunities within that field, whether it's sourcing, whether it's structuring, whether it's creating standards to allow things to properly interoperate. There's a ton of different possibilities there. And then I think the last piece is kind of aside from the three components that are needed, we need to find better ways to package this stuff. You mentioned there's a ton of companies building wrappers for ChatGPT, and like, sure, there's probably ways that that becomes super useful. Like maybe you can create a specific version of a model that specializes in figuring out your macros for the food you're eating or something. And it's like a simple app where you take a picture and boom. Like I think that type of stuff is cool.
Hmm.
But probably figuring out how to package a model and allow a user to interact with it in a more meaningful way and in a more intuitive and natural way is probably going to be a big natural unlock.
Mhm.
And I think we'll see a ton of companies building in that space.
Got it. Got it. Sounds good. We're coming up on time here, but like, one last or maybe a couple of questions here. Like, what is your guys' biggest bottleneck right now at Sapien? Like, is it the talent or is it more customers? Like, what do you see you need to, or you need to tackle in order to grow the company to the next level?
We need to fix the quality control problem. For
Hmm.
now, it's way too centralized. It's taking up way too much of our time. We've literally employed a scaly number of people
Hmm.
to just sift through and verify and validate data.
Hmm.
And it's not scalable. It's an awful path to market. And
Hmm.
we need to launch the Sapien token, launch the
Hmm.
reputation system fully, and migrate to peer review
Hmm.
to give us scalability and path to proper growth. For
Great.
context, we've turned away work this year because
Hmm.
we couldn't credibly look the customer in the eyes and say, yeah, we can deliver that in 2 months. Like there was just no way that we could do it. And so
Hmm.
rather than ruining the relationship, we have to just politely decline. And once we have the system kicking ass, we can go back and we can take on these much larger scopes.
And when is the token coming out? Is there any estimated timeline for that?
Uh, I need to be careful there, but it's it's relatively near term. We're nearly ready. We've done the majority of our auditing. We're going to run with two different independent auditors to make sure our
Mhm.
contracts are as secure as they can possibly be.
Mhm.
And we're doing some penetration testing and some hardening of infrastructure. And we're doing a go-to-market exercise with some partners. We are lining up exchanges and kind of the infrastructure that's needed to allow the token to operate. We're getting there. We're getting pretty close. I wouldn't
Mhm.
like to say a specific date. What I will say though is that we're going to release our tokenomics, which explain in a lot more detail how this entire system fits together, what
Mhm.
the system of incentives and disincentives that I've been talking about this whole time actually looks like, how it works in practice, and that will
Mhm.
be released tomorrow. So
Oh,
we're
wow.
pretty
Nice.
close to properly publicizing the inner workings here.
Amazing, amazing stuff. So sounds good. I want to, thank you for coming on the show. I learned a lot. Like a lot of this stuff is new to me. Not the AI, but like connecting the dots between the two sides. Like the Web3, the AI, how to create more accurate data for companies. Essentially, that's what's in demand, and I think that's also what's the bottleneck for from AI industry growing further. So a lot of great insights here. Rowan, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
Uh, I don't know. I think probably the best way to round this out is if you are an enterprise business and you want to source data, sapien.io, come and check us
Mhm.
out. And if you are a person, if you are a sapien and you want to monetize knowledge that you have or spend some time earning some cash,
Mhm.
then earn.sapien.io is the right place.
Sounds good. And just to follow up on that last, the jobs part, like what are the most in-demand tasks that need to be solved on Sapien?
It's impossible to answer because it changes almost every day.
Okay.
Um, the themes that are typically in demand kind of in perpetuity, or at least for now,
Hmm.
are what we call ASR, so audio speech recognition, and
Hmm.
across multiple languages. So you might have one in Mandarin, one in Spanish, one in Portuguese.
Hmm.
And these are read out a body of text and
Uh-huh.
then annotate over the top of your recording as to like what each word is. And that's
Hmm.
helping voice models better understand not just different languages, but
Hmm.
different accents and dialects within different languages so that people like me who have a weird Scottish accent can use things like Google Home and Siri and stuff like that without it saying, sorry, I do not understand.
Hmm. What are some of the highest earners that you guys have on your platform? I don't know if you track that, but just curious if.
So far, I mean, from an hourly perspective, the highest earners so far have been doctors of varying types.
Uh-huh.
But in a total perspective, it's probably people that are spending almost full-time, if not more than full-time hours, just grinding through a variety of much more simple tasks that
Mhm,
pretty much anyone can do.
mhm,
Um, that they're obviously racking up much lower hourly rates, but they're
mhm.
racking up a lot more money over time.
Got it. Got it. Sounds good. Sounds interesting. Well, again, thank you. We'll get this published. And hopefully someone in our audience will reach out to you, like whether that's from the enterprise side of things or, like maybe the talent as well, because that's kind of like in many ways our focus. But yeah, I learned a lot. Hopefully, our listeners will also. Thank you, Rowan. And then, yeah, that'll be it. We'll reach out to you when we get this published. Sounds good?
Sounds great. Thank you so much for your time.
Rowan, thank you.